7:01, we are opening the public hearing for the City of Cortland's Common Council. We have a public hearing for the local law, for a potential local law overriding New York State imposed tax levy limit for fiscal year 2020. Public hearing is officially open. Do we have anybody signed up to speak? Seeing none, we're going to give it, that's the first call, we'll give it a minute. Second call, anybody to speak on the public hearing about the city's potential to override the tax cap? Third, final call, is there anybody who's present to speak regarding a local law for overriding the New York State imposed tax levy limit for fiscal year 2020? Hearing seeing none, we'll call the public hearing officially closed. And we'll officially call the October 1st of 2019 City of Cortland Common Council meeting to order. You will all rise if you are able with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, we have public comments. We've got a couple people signed up. We're asking that comments are directed to council regarding issues in the City of Cortland that council can deal with directly, and that comments are limited to 3 minutes. And
before you get started, could I ask, when you get to certain things in this, in the paper here tonight, that you have letters down, could you tell us please, tell me please, what those letters mean?
Acronyms.
For example, wait just a minute.
MOU.
Will do. Will do.
Okay?
And seeker.
So our first speaker, John Banowitz.
Common Council members, ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Banowitz. I decided to run for Cortland County Treasurer when nobody ran in the primaries. And I feel that my background in the military for 36 years and with Verizon for 28 years qualifies me for the challenge. I was raised on a dairy farm in the Albany area, and with 7 brothers and 1 sister. At 10th grade, I decided that I was going to pursue a career in electronics, and I joined the military, became a microwave radio repairman, and served 18 months in Vietnam repairing electronic equipment. I studied on my own to get my first class radio telephone license, and got a job with New York Telephone at top craft and 1 step below top pay, because they needed personnel with that license and the experience that I had. And I also maxed the test to join the telephone company. While working for New York Tel, I met my wife, Carol, love of my life for 46 years, and joined the National Guard at that time, and became an officer. At that time, a high school graduate could become an officer if he met other criteria, which I did. I became an infantry officer, went to infantry officer advanced course. Through other assignments that I had, I also went to engineer officer advanced course and ordnance officer advanced course, and command general staff course. Also attended fiscal law training with the Corps of Engineers. In the 90s, I resumed college, and I got an associate degree in general studies, associate degree in telecommunications, bachelor's degree in history. And then I retired from Verizon after 28 years. The last 10 years was a mainframe computer technician. Then I continued working on my master's, and 4 credit hours short of completing the course. My military reserve unit with the Corps of Engineers was activated for 9/11, and I was on active duty for 8 years. My last assignment was program manager for military construction in northern Iraq and project manager for construction on Balad Air Force Base in Iraq. My greatest challenges were to identify and resolve issues between quality assurance personnel, contractors, the customer, and my boss, which was general. I also briefed potential contractors on upcoming projects, answered their questions, evaluated bids for the projects, and reviewed closeout documents when the projects were complete.
Thank you, John. Can you wrap up?
Yep.
I hate to cut you short, but
Nope.
we do have a full agenda this evening.
Yep. My goal has always been to produce a quality project on time and within budget, and I will strive to do the same for Cortland County. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker, Joe Schaefer.
What was this on council meeting we addresses?
We're gonna miss you, Spiros. Send us a postcard.
Good evening, members of the council. I'd like to discuss 2 items. One is item 22 and item 23. 22 you talk about, and I've lived in this community for almost 50 years, and I've always felt that holiday decor for the city was only directed to one particular group of people and not all inclusive or representative of the population in this community. I would urge you, when you talk about holiday decor, that you go beyond just decorating a Christmas tree. There are other people in this community. There's Kwanzaa, there's Hanukkah, there are other issues that you might find perhaps in your legislative districts. I'd like you to be more aware, more confident, more inclusive in the way you discuss and learn about what the holiday systems are all about. There are people to whom you can address questions, who will be knowledgeable and be able to give you some information. I do know that the college has major equipment to celebrate both Christmas and Hanukkah, that I'm sure, considering it will be 24th, 25th, 26th of December, and no classes, you might be able to perhaps borrow that material. I know that the Village of Homer has already done so, and will be doing something like that previous. So I would like you to be more open, more inclusive of all the people in the community. Moving on to item 23, I read on the agenda, and I printed off the formal agenda, and then I noticed that there's a new issue of it. I'm not so sure you can bring an amended agenda item without amending your agenda. As Mr. Tytler mentioned, and I see he's here this evening, you still have not corrected the last part of the decision-making, the recommendation, which should not reside in a single individual, but represent the totality of the ward, so missing representative. And that I would ask you to reconsider 2 things. One, a vote of 2/3 majority. I don't think you have 5 1/3 person that you want to have vote. You might want to consider making that a super majority rather than cutting a person into thirds. I think it's less bloody and more accommodating. It's also more legal. The expulsion, the mayor shall make the recommendation. We had suggested last time that you look at the decision-making of the county legislature, in which the resident party chair of that particular person would circulate petition within the community, find other people who would be in that party, in that ward, representing the democratically elected ward, and they would present a series of people qualified to the council for the council's approval to keep the democratic process alive. It should not be in the hands of a single person, but in the council itself. I think that's basically what I have to say. You know I'll be back if it's, you're smiling at me.
Yeah, I know you'll be back.
You know I'll be back. In any event, I do think that you need to reconsider those things, and I must urge that you go back to maintaining the democratic electoral process in choosing a replacement, not just a single person, but the totality of the ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next speaker, Dino Dorman.
Thank you, Corey. Hi, guys. My name's Dino Gorman. I want to talk about the removal of the DEA connection through the MOE. I've spoken to every council member on the phone. I stressed and will re-stress again that this disconnect will cause more issues in the future that you do not see. I lost my son, Spencer, 2017 to a drug overdose. And since then, I've dug in to understand it and learned things I never thought I would. Having that officer directly linked to the DEA and connected to our community is going to allow for him to look out for our community before the drugs are coming here. Those drugs are purchased out of Syracuse and brought down here. We don't have the big dealers in this town like they do in Syracuse, okay, that lead all the way back to Mexico, whether we like it or not, that is the case, okay? They just did a large bust up in Lafayette connected directly to El Chapo. Onondaga County is losing people every day. I just lost a dear friend on the front line of this fight. He was the face of Narcan for Onondaga County and across the state. He was 6 years clean, and he tripped one time and it took his life. We stop these drugs before they come to this town, and we're going to save more lives. Now, you may say, well, the deaths in Cortland County are down. The numbers show it. The numbers are skewed. And my son's case is a perfect example. In Cortland is when his overdose occurred. Medically, he went to upstate in Onondaga County. He went up there March 23rd. He passed April 8th in Onondaga County. His death is on the books as Onondaga County, not Cortland County. You can't look at the numbers, they are skewed. Onondaga's numbers are up so high because all the surrounding counties have to send them.
Jeff Gambino.
Hello. The point of this is that, one, I hear, oh, money's an issue, okay? $18,000 is reimbursed by the DEA for the overtime, okay? $15,000 to $20,000 a year is over that. We've gotten $27,000 a day from confiscation of money, houses, and property through the courts that we're connected with the DEA. So that cancels. Then I hear, well, we have to wait for that money. Okay, so we started a cycle where we waited for that money as it goes through the court case, and every time we're connected to a court case, that cycle continues. We break that cycle and decide later date that we made a mistake, we are gonna end up having to start that cycle again. It doesn't make sense to break the cycle. We already have money coming, and as the chief said, pending $10,000 still. Okay, money shouldn't even be a factor. In 2018, the CDC stated that drugs are killing more than the cars, guns, and a falling accident. In 2018, 41,340 deaths in the United States from a drug overdose. And that is just opioids, okay? That doesn't cover any other, just opioids. Your heroin, your oxy, okay, your benzos. In 2016, 78 people a day are dying. Last number reported by the CDC, 197 people are dying a day in this country. You want to talk numbers? You want to talk money? Tell me right now, how much money is one life worth? Tell me how much 2 lives are worth. You take this connection away, every single one of you, and I've asked you this on the phone, are you able to live with when the numbers start dying in our town again, knowing that this link was broken? I'm asked every one of you to revisit this and revote again. It isn't too late. This can be fixed. What can you live with? Right here on this, my son's on there. Their daughters are on there, their son's on there. We do this because people need to understand, these are just everyday people. Everyday people. Not what you see in the news, not what you see in the movies. All these people out here are probably going, it could never touch my home. I thought that. You wanna sit there and you wanna say, I'm not picking, Mayor. Okay, you wanna say, well, our man is unsupervised. They're in the cars all day unsupervised. We need to trust them. They're putting their life on the line every day to keep this crap out of our town. Well, we got dealers in our town, we got dealers. Let me break news to everyone. An addict, a user, someone in need, it's not about a high. It's about the amount of pain they're in, which has been described to me as 14 knives shoved in your stomach and twisted every direction. And the only thing that stops it is that next time you do the drug. But money becomes an issue and all the other problems that come with it. So that person will travel to Syracuse because they have a car and they will buy it. And they bring it down here. And then they take what they have and they cut it in half. And they sell half of it while they use it. I'm gonna ask you, and they can tell you, I have 2 people signed up after me. They'd like me to take their time. Is the council okay with that?
Council?
Yes.
Thank you. What they're doing is they're making sure they have money the next time, so that when the pain comes back, that they're able to fight it. It's an excruciating amount of pain. We always hear it's about the high. It's not about a high anymore. And how they got there to begin with isn't for us to judge. What we need to understand is they're a human being, and they are in pain. And obviously, we don't have all the right things in place to help people through recovery, and I can say that because I'm a friend of mine, Kevin Donovan, the face of Narcan in Onondaga County. He's personally trained over 3,000 people in a year and put Narcan out there. He personally saved somebody on the side of the road. He has traveled as far as Rome, Albany, Utica, Watertown to make sure people have a tool. He was a 16-year battle, 6 years clean. He tripped the other day and is dead. This is affecting everyone. So no, we can't fix the problem where the people are hurting and they need it, and we don't have, God knows our county jail, let's not go there, okay? But the rehabs aren't right, and it's not one thing for everyone. But this person in need, you guys wanna call it an addict, these people are hurting. In 2011, 80 doctors, the US government diagnosed it as a brain disorder. But we wanna sit there and we wanna sit there and say, you know, oh, they're making a choice. Bull crap. The DEA's importance. My son's case is 2 years active still. The DEA is involved, but we're still waiting on it. So let's disconnect from the DEA. Makes sense? Then we don't have a guy that has a stake in the game looking out for us. We have to wait for them to call us and say, hey, we can benefit from you right now. Or, hey, this might be coming your way. But then again, what if they don't have time to call us? As I said, I'm waiting 2 years still. You really think this is a smart move? I don't. I hear from you guys, oh, our voters, they want this officer in town. Room's pretty filled right now. We'll see how many of those voters are here to voice it. I'm begging you guys, look at this again. Listen to your chief. Your chief is the one that is running your department. He is in the middle of it. He knows how the place is met. If he is saying this is a wrong move, he is the person you should be listening to and nobody else. Because he is the one that is placing the pieces on the chessboard to keep this crap out of our town. Anybody in this room that's been affected by drugs if you have the courage right now, stand up and let them know there's faces here that have been affected by this. Be it a cousin, a child, a sister, a brother. People behind me are. Again, make a vote, re-vote it, and do one you can live with. No amount of money is worth a life. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And then we had Carleen and Cindy.
We gave them.
Thank you. Bill Fisk.
Dean, you're a tough act to follow. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, I am Bill Fisk, and I'm here to address a couple items that are on your agenda for this evening. The first is item 12, EAFs, Environmental Assessment Forms. Now, everything that's on here needs to be done, and we all know that it will be done. But these were delivered approximately 2 o'clock this afternoon. Hope all of you got it by then. And I think it's quite clear that no one has had any time to review these. You might find some mistakes in it. I think I found a couple. So I would strongly recommend you table this and give it time to digest. Come back and revisit it in 2 weeks or 5, as the case may be. And the other I had down is 22 and 23, but Joe showed me that my count is off. And anyway, these are regarding attendance at council meetings. You know, it's hard to get people to run for public office, as it is. Troy and Kat are in their first terms, but I think everybody else among you, everyone among you, including the mayor, has run unopposed at least once. So, you want to get people to seek public office, don't make it as difficult for them as you possibly can, and that's what this looks like to me. The 19,000 people that you represent, most of those have jobs and families, just the same way as you do. But you're representing those kinds of people. You're not representing people with unlimited amounts of free time to devote to this. So, the attendance may be spotty, but I would say that punishing absentee members in any way is the philosophical equivalent of a treating headaches by decapitation.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Our final speaker for the evening, Bruce Tyler.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I just want to take a couple minutes also to address item 23. I've been knocking on some more doors the last several weeks. This has come up I would say more than a couple times. It's come up several times. And nobody thinks that it's ethical for somebody to be a representative of the people and then essentially skip out. No one agrees that that's ethical. What people have trouble with is a future council, and nobody doubts, especially me, your intentions, what you're intending to do. The future council is a majority, 2/3 majority of the future council expelling someone, again, based on some arbitrarily identified absence policy, when in fact, we may not even know why they're absent. As I said before, it could very well be a health reason. Somebody may not want that to be public for very obvious reasons. So I ask you to reconsider this. We're talking 2-year terms, which goes by, as you all know, very, very quickly. And at the very least, again, I haven't anybody that said it's a good idea to let the mayor, if you go through with this, appoint a future mayor, appoint a common council member. They believe, as I do, that the ward, people in the ward should have something to say about it. And at the very least, maybe the political party of the person being expelled should be consulted and maybe with the advice and consent of the political party of the person being expelled. They would have a better handle on what's going on in the ward. So I ask you to reconsider an attendance policy for elected officials. And if you're determined to go through with this, folks, please take another look at how you're gonna replace that person. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. That concludes what we have for public comments this evening. Moving on, we've got board reports, but if it's okay with council, we have 5 proclamations. If it's okay, I'd like to do one now, and then one as we're coming around the table, and then that way I can catch my breath. Thank you. So our first proclamation is to declare October of 2019 National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Whereas, each year during the month of October, the city of Cortland joins with the nation in celebration of National Disability Employment Awareness Month. We take this opportunity to recognize the abilities and accomplishments of workers with disabilities and acknowledge the efforts made to enhance opportunity and equal employment for individuals with disabilities through legislation such as the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. And whereas we grow stronger as a community when each person feels the dignity conferred by having the ability to support themselves and their family through productive work. Our community is dedicated to ensuring that all residents with disabilities can live life fully with greater opportunities and independence through support of employment first initiatives, equal wages, and enhanced supportive and customized employment programs. Toward this end, our community continues to take action toward equal employment for all individuals, and collaboration continues to grow and strengthen among local agencies, leaders, service providers, employers, and citizens with disabilities and their families to expand the range of available services and supports that increase employment opportunities. And we can call on all of our citizens to celebrate the contributions of individuals with disabilities to our workplace and community, and to promote the employment of individuals with disabilities to create a better and more inclusive community, one in which every person is rightfully recognized for their abilities and accomplishments. Furthermore, we urge employers, as they seek to fill positions, to embrace the richness of our community's diversity by considering the talents of all workers, especially workers with disabilities. Now, therefore, I, Brian Tobin, Mayor for the City of Cortland, hereby proclaim October 2019 as Disability Employment Awareness Month. And we'll go to a couple of ward reports. Kat McCarthy.
All right. It's been a busy month in Ward 1. I have heard some concerns about the decision at the last meeting to leave the MOU with the DEA. I also have had the opportunity to circulate through the board, been knocking on some doors to hear feedback from constituents, and have heard some concerns about the streets and trees and blue bag costs, but also have heard some really great praise for the work that our DPW does on the condition of the streets and addressing it quickly. So I've shared the concerns I've had with department heads. They've been very receptive, and I appreciate that. I also heard a concern about the impact of the city school district busing on city residents, especially with parents, with students getting home late as they work through some of the kinks initially. So that's something that I think, I've heard. I don't know if anybody else has heard concerns about. The last thing I just want to mention is that I've also been asked to serve on this with CNY Arts on an advisory board for each of the DRI communities. There's a process going through for an arts and entertainment district in each of the 5 different communities. So I'll be communicating on that advisory board to see where we go with moving forward with adding more to our community here.
Thank you. Katie.
Things are settling down in the 2nd Ward. I also heard, however, from a lot of people about our decision as a council to not vote to renew the MOU, probably because I did vote for it. I didn't realize what a hot button issue it would be. I've appreciated hearing from people, and I hope that we get to reconsider it this council meeting. We continue to have really loud Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. Otherwise, it's very pleasant in Ward 2, and I guess that's about it.
Very good. Gary, can I jump in again? Second proclamation, October of 2019 is Anti-Bullying Awareness Month. So whereas we must safeguard schools and communities for our children, and through our recognition of the serious issues that face them every day, offer our children an environment that holds promise and security. And whereas each day it's estimated 160,000 children refuse to go to school because they dread the physical and verbal aggression of their peers and the loneliness that comes from being excluded and made the target of rumors and cyberbullying. Many more students attend school in a state of chronic anxiety, and it is important that we acknowledge and heighten awareness about the serious issues and the negative effects of bullying, including the long-term damage it can cause to our youth, as well as the risks of teenage suicide. And providing a safe physical and emotional environment is a significant goal and a personal responsibility of each individual. So it is time to stand up for character and down to bullying. So therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Brian Tobin, Mayor for the City of Cortland, designate the month of October 2019 as Anti-Bullying Awareness Month, and as a symbol of our commitment to the year-round struggle against bullying, and call on all of our citizens to make awareness and prevention a daily exercise to help put an end to bullying. Gary.
Mr. Mayor, Ward 3 has been comparatively quiet. Some of the things I didn't say, I've said 10 times before, so I'll leave them out. The house on Forest Ave that was the crux of a lot of people's problem has since been bought and they are in the process of rehabbing the house extensively. And it's starting to look up. I'm quite proud of the way it's starting to look, and it's a good thing. The other one is I've had 3 calls about political signs, but I'll take those up with the zoning officer rather than board of council with it. And that's it, Mayor, and thank you.
Thank you. John?
Hello, to begin with, this Thursday evening at 6:30 in this esteemed chamber, we will be having our first budget session workshop. So again, this Thursday, 2 days from now at 6:30. The other thing is I've taken some calls to my ward, and the majority of the calls in my ward are from people who feel we are better served if we are in the Cortland County Drug Task Force. That's all I've got to say.
Very good. Are we ready for another proclamation?
Gary says go.
Declaring October of 2019 National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So this year, more than 268,000 women and over 2,600 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer in America. And the heartache and the pain of this disease will touch too many of our mothers, fathers, daughters, and sisters, and too many families will bear these burdens. During National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we recognize all those who know the anguish of breast cancer, and we stand behind the efforts to improve care and bring attention to this disease. And when breast cancer is caught early, treatments work best and survival rates increase. That's why everyone should be familiar with risk factors and symptoms of this disease and speak with their health care provider about the risk of breast cancer and the importance of recommended mammograms. So today, more Americans are surviving than ever before, but there is more work to do. Researchers work every day to improve the lives of patients, survivors, and their families. And this month, as we honor those who have lost to breast cancer, let us join with the loved ones who celebrate their memory and the patients who battle this disease every day, as well as our nation's advocates, medical researchers, and healthcare providers. Together, we renew our commitment to better prevent, detect, and treat breast cancer, and we continue our work toward a future free from cancer in all of its forms. So, in recognition of the importance of bringing awareness to this disease and early detection, I hereby proclaim the month of October in 2019 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. and I urge all citizens to join in activities that will increase awareness of what Americans can do to prevent breast cancer. Thank you. Bill?
The Fifth Ward, it's all quiet. This past Sunday, I attended the Emergency Services Day at Rotary Park. The police department was there, the state police, Bangs, and the fire department, all emergency services were there. There was a helicopter there. It was great for the kids, great turnout. I really appreciate all the effort the departments did in this event. Thank you.
Troy?
Just a few calls, mainly regarding the budget. And I told them that obviously we have some decisions we're gonna have to make, and then we would do what we could do to keep everything as low as possible. And, second of all, just remind everybody the Pumpkin's Fest this weekend. You can get out and support all your local vendors and who people will be there. Should be a good time.
Tom, and if I jump in, two more, I'll go before and after you.
All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Fourth proclamation for the evening, declaring October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So whereas 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime, and approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence each year. And when a family member is abused, it can have a long-term effect on the victim that also leaves marks on the family, friends, and the community at large. So the problem of domestic violence is not confined to any one group or groups of people, but it crosses economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers, and is sustained by societal differences. The crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, psychological, and economic control and or abuse. And victims should have help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing that they need. And domestic abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. And it's important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to victims of domestic violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. And we, as a community, treat people with respect and dignity and as equals. So, in recognition of the important work being done by domestic violence programs and victim service providers, I hereby proclaim this month as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I urge all citizens to actively participate in scheduled activities and programs that take place working to eliminate violence against women and girls. Side note, the YW does have an event this Friday evening, Chefs Taking a Stand Against Domestic Violence, 5 to 7. There's a number of people from the community who are making dishes, myself included. I caution you before you taste it. But you are welcome to attend and support people in the fight against domestic violence. Tom?
Just a few things. Attended the ceremonial proceedings with our fire chief, outgoing fire chief, the other day. It was certainly a moving ceremony. Chief saying farewell to all the people that he'd worked under him for a number of years. It was a very moving ceremony. Got one code-related issue that I forwarded over to our code office that's currently being addressed. There's one agenda item I'd like to add tonight regarding a parrot permit. You can slip that in at the end of the night, so we don't bore everybody with the parrot details. And,
It's an exotic pet. How can something exotic be boring?
Well, it's better than the miniature goat. The other issue, I did field some calls regarding the bus situation with the school, and the high school knew there were going to be issues with this new program, and they're slowly getting them worked out, but there was some frustrated parents. And the last thing that really concerned me was the conversation I had with Mr. O'Gorman.
I've known Mr. Gorman for a number of years. His brother was my manager for a number of years. We had a lengthy conversation, and that certainly hit home. And I don't think everybody realized it or not, but it was another young life that was taken from us just a few days ago from a heroin fentanyl overdose. So, to ignore the problem that we don't have an issue in Cortland, we do. And until we find a way to solve this, I certainly like everybody's attention tonight to see if we can address this problem. And that's all I have for the 8th Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Fifth and final proclamation for the evening is about Fire Prevention Week, which is October 6th through the 12th, coming up soon. So whereas the City of Cortland and the Cortland Fire Department are committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting the City of Cortland, and whereas fire is a serious safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and the majority of U.S. fire deaths, approximately 4 out of every 5, actually occur at home each year. And the 2019 Fire Prevention Week theme, "Not Every Hero Wears a Cape, Plan and Practice Your Escape," effectively serves to remind us that we need to take personal steps to increase our safety from fire. Therefore, I do hereby proclaim October 6th through the 12th of 2019 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the city, and I urge everyone to be aware of their surroundings, look for available ways out in the event of a fire or other emergency, respond when the smoke alarm sounds by exiting the building immediately, and support the many public activities and efforts of the City of Cortland Fire Department during Fire Prevention Week 2019. And this ties in very well. We have Pumpkin Fest this weekend, as Troy mentioned, and the fire station has an open house. Chief Friedman, would you like to comment about the open house at all, or what's going to be set up?
I can do that later.
Okay.
How much later?
Well, I can do that later.
Everybody's gonna be waiting.
We can fit them behind the
After the parrot. One more bit of information. It was mentioned about, there has been some calls about political signs. When the city went through our code revisions, it was discussed not just by council, but also by planning commission, zoning board, open for public meetings. And one of the revisions to the code was to eliminate signage between the sidewalk and the road, what we typically call the right-of-way. And there was 2 main reasons why this was decided. Number 1 is safety. In particular, you get into the colder winter months, those signs might get buried in a snowbank. It'd be nice to say just the winter months, because that's the only time snow happens, right? The wind, if you've ever gone down Tompkins, when the wind is whipping, it's real easy for those signs to get thrown out. There's potential hazards by placing them closer to the road, in addition to the visual obstruction. And then the second determining factor in terms of voting for this is just the appearance. And you might notice now as you go through the city that a lot of the signs are set back. Hopefully that gives a more attractive appearance to the city overall. And there's little things that we can do like this that still allow people to advertise their political support, construction, home sales, rental properties. There's a lot of signs that are out there, but what we're trying to do is maintain a safe and attractive city. If there's further questions about that, feel free, send me an email, give me a call, and I'd be more than happy to talk with people about, as we're heading into political season, what we want to do as a city to maintain a safe and attractive city. Our first agenda item is consideration of resolutions award funds from the city's fiscal year 2018 CDBG for micro enterprise assistance, that's community development block grant, to micro enterprise applicants pursuant to recommendations for funding by the city's micro enterprise assisting plan review committee. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Bill Carpenter, and no. we'll come back to that. We've already got a motion on the floor. Thank you for the reminder. Linda Armstrong, welcome.
I'd be happy to answer any questions about the information I sent you, specific to projects or specific to the program. And I would ask that when you vote, that there are some contingencies that we discussed on certain projects, that it be understood that as administrators of the program, you'll let us use our discrepancy and adding those to the commitment letters to make sure that the intent of the review committee is clearly defined in the commitment.
No, from what I read, all 6 look very worthy. I believe there are 4 brand new and 2 existing businesses, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
No, to me, they all look very worthy, and I think the committee made very good choices.
Nice thing is that if we can get the money out, all the money was committed in the first round. In the past, we've often gone through 2 rounds, sometimes 3. If we can get the money out, if we can get the projects on their feet, get the money out in time to apply next July, then we will have money again, and we'll apply in 2020, we'll have it in 2021. Otherwise, it's a 2-year program, and there's usually a year that you don't have any access to funds because you're running it over 2 years. But we would like to be able to get it all spent by next, March, April, somewhere there to write another grant if that's the city's desire. No questions?
Sounds great.
It does. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting and moving forward as is, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations to the 6 award winners. We'll have a list that will be published shortly after the meeting, correct?
There will be emails going out tomorrow morning to all applicants, one way or the other. Thank you.
Yep. There were, just as a reminder, how many applications were there?
There were 12 applications.
So it was a very competitive
Yes.
process. It was a lot of difficult decisions.
Yes, there were. It would be nice if the state would fund this program in a little bit higher amount. Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Maybe one day. Thank you.
So backtracking, minutes from last meeting. Motion to consider the following minutes as is. John Bennett, Bill Carpenter. Discussion, any concerns regarding the minutes? All those in favor of filing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 2, consideration of resolution to accept, recognize, and appropriate $314.54 in bottle and can donations from the police department to Waterworks Deer Fund. Motion to consider. Katie Silverman, second. John Bennett, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 3, resolution to consider, consideration of resolution to declare a 2010 Chevy Impala as surplus property from the city police department, so it may be sold for auction. Motion to consider. Gary Thomas, second. Katie Silverman, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 4, resolution to appropriate sale proceeds from the auction to A3120.206 operational equipment to help purchase a newer police vehicle. Motion to consider. Katie Silverman, second. Kat McCarthy, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 5, resolution to accept, recognize, and appropriate the following donations to the Youth Bureau. We have money going to Porch Fest from the Guthrie Clinic, and money going to Aquatics from Diane and Donald Shute. Motion to consider. Katie Silverman, second. John Bennett, discussion. All those.
Just wanted to say, very much appreciate these donations to the youth center.
2 outstanding events. The Porch Fest is a concert in August, and the Aquatics, I believe that's going to go directly through the swim lessons that are offered for free over in Wickwater Pool. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 6, resolution to approve a contract between Seven Valleys Health Coalition and the city for a food recovery network in Cortland. Motion to consider, Cat McCarthy, second, John Bennett. Discussion. And is Susan, in case there are questions, Susan Williams from Seven Valleys is here, as is Bruce Adams from wastewater treatment. Questions? Susan, you want to give just a quick overview of what we're looking at?
So this is the same program that I was here talking about when you approved the contract between the New York State DEC and the city. So the contract up before you is between Seven Valleys and the city to execute that grant work. And it's, the primary work will be food recovery. We're planning on creating a food recovery network within Cortland. It'll also include an education component. There'll be a little bit of composting education, and it is a 3-year grant period. So we have a $50,000 cash matching grant from the Health Foundation for Western Central New York that was received by Seven Valleys because it's required that much match. Anything I can answer?
What's the timeline on the project at this point with the grant? Like, when does it start for the 3 years?
So the grant funding, technically the grant contract that you approved already started June 2nd, I think, something like that. I mean, that's, the New York State does that with their grant funding. So the cycle starts as soon as, you know, they agree upon everything. We did a little bit of work starting in August, so we were a little bit behind, but it takes some time to get all the paperwork to the city and then have everything go through. So it's not unusual. We had the same situation with our USDA grant. The nice thing is, unlike when we received our last USDA grant, it was a food project work, and we had to go through the hiring process. The person right now we have in a house is a 50% program coordinator for our USDA project. That grant funding ended on September 30th, so she will be rolling over. It was really good timing that we have, so, you know, some of us picked up some of the other work that she needed to do in the office to get rolling on the gleaning we did in August, but we'll be able to hit the ground running a little easier that way. Any other questions?
I understand we had to hire an individual to oversee some of this?
You had to? I don't
Am
believe so.
am I thinking of something else that's on the agenda?
So we included some funding in the grant that will go towards the time that Mr. Adams is going to spend on the project. But I don't
Okay,
believe the city's hiring anyone.
Okay, that's what it was,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
That way it wasn't costing the city anything to do this work with us. That was
Okay,
the goal.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Great opportunity to do more in terms of food recovery. Number 7, resolution awarding a 5-year service contract to Martin Energy Group for the maintenance of the combined heat and power system at the wastewater treatment facility and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. 5-year term cost is to be at $553,740. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Gary Thomas, discussion. And Bruce is still here.
This is a 5-year contract to perform maintenance and guaranteed % uptime on our electrical generator for the combined heat power. The company that put in the low bid has already been doing service for us. We've been paying them on a per service basis, and they've been very gracious in lending their expertise as required. Phenomenally competent company. We've been terribly impressed with them.
Any questions for Mr. Adams? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Carries. Agenda item number 8, resolution to approve the appointment of Kerry Kane to the wastewater advisory board for a 3-year term. Motion to consider. Bill Carpenter, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion. Volunteering to serve on one of our committees, one of our commissions, and we need people to continue to step forward. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We're carried. Agenda item number 9, resolution approving an interfund transfer of $141,616.98 from the wastewater ER&R account to the capital fund to cover expenses related to the facility upgrade. Motion to consider, Gary Thomas, second. John Bennett, discussion. Bruce, what's ER&R?
Equipment Repair and Replacement Fund. And that fund gets replenished when our revenues exceed our annual expenses. I'm told that it currently has, I think, $1.4 million in it. And that the ask for this transfer is, again, associated with the length of time it's taking to get the NYSERDA reimbursement.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Agenda item number 10, resolution to close Court Street in front of the fire department headquarters in conjunction with the fire department annual open house and pumpkin fest on October 3rd from 900 to 1600 hours, and from the Church Street intersection to the NBT Bank parking lot. Motion to consider, Gary Thomas, second. Bill Carpenter, discussion. Have you cleared this with the fire department and police department?
It's been cleared to the fire department, and I did speak with Deputy Chief Sandy, so we should be okay. Yes, that has been taken care of. So this goes, as you spoke of earlier, open house annually at the fire department, our second biggest event that we have from 9 to 4. Fire prevention week kind of kicks off that day, and our staff is there to do fire prevention activities. Other things that go along with that, we'll also have our volunteers there for membership recruitment, because we get a lot of questions. But it's a very busy day for the fire department there, so that's why we're shutting it down so we don't have any issues.
Questions, discussion?
Sounds good. Chief,
All-
I have a question that's sort of, in terms of PR, last weekend Cortland hosted a steampunk festival, and you had an old pumper in front of the firehouse. Was that in support of the festival?
We were asked to do that, yes, and it was probably the old, what they call the Randall tub, looked like a little wagon on wheels. That was one of the original fire apparatus here for the city, so over the years, volunteers and others have rehabbed it, if you will, so it kind of was with that era of stuff, and they asked what we could do, so
That's neat.
they've got it, it's just a little bit of something, but yeah, antique, yep, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 11, resolution to accept a grant from the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program for the acquisition of a vehicle exhaust retrieval system for Station 2. Total award is in the amount of $28,911 with a 5% match of local funds, which will be absorbed through the fire department operating budget. Motion to consider, Katie Silman, second. Gary Thomas, discussion.
So this system, I've got Captain Tenkate up here, all of you know him, he works diligently to get some of the grant fundings that we get in the fire department. Last year, we were fortunate to, he can probably tell you the exact number, but we were fortunate to get the exhaust retrieval system for headquarters, and if you've been there, you'll see the hoses that hang down. They hook to the trucks, so that when the trucks are first started, the exhaust is exited entirely from the building, which is called 100% capture. And just in the time that they've been there, what, a year, not quite, we've seen a significant difference in the building with the smoke from the trucks. It's hard, I don't have exact data, but the older engine, when it started, would load that hallway and Heidi's office pretty quickly, and it just traveled right up through. And we've noticed a significant difference, so it's very effective. Long range, it's going to
limit our exposure, the carcinogens that come from that, long range, people getting sick. Cancer is a big thing in the fire service now, and this is just one little component of it.
Sure.
So, headquarters got it last year, Mike worked hard to get it this year, and we're gonna absorb the costs in our operating budget to get it done at Station 2, and that'll make a big difference down there too, so. For your consideration.
Thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
One other brief item to tie into the grant awards. Chief Glover, while he was here, was involved in another AFG grant, a regional grant, where we worked with some other local departments in the acquisition of fire hose. You think that's simple, it's just fire hose, but we're able to work as a regional grant with 4 other departments. Captain Tenkate wrote the grant for everybody, and we were able to secure $23,000 worth of hose at a 5% match for us, which is, we're gonna absorb that too. So his diligent efforts and being able to work with the other departments definitely, you know, that always looks favorably, right, to the group, to the FEMA government. So that's a big deal. So we're having that's been thrown into. Not that it's on your agenda, but for your information. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Very good news across the board. Number 12, Rick, coming forward. We have 4 bond resolutions that need to go through for consideration for seeker and then potential for public notices.
That's right. We do have 4, and they're all relatively identical, and they all relate to the bonding portion of this project. We have done a seeker review of much of the Clinton Street project over the course of the last couple of years, as well as the water plant proposals. The other projects are waiting the money in order to supply the engineering and the planning and the architecting for the, so that we know what it is that we have to consider relative to any economic issues. This particular night, we're just simply doing whether or not the bonding should go forward, and as to whether or not it has a negative effect on the environment. How I've done this in the past, and I'm going to propose that I do it again, is that we have the 4, with each of those bonds. I will ask you 4 questions, or ask you 1 question, but ask you to answer it 4 times for each of those projects so we can be a little bit more efficient. If that's an acceptable way of doing it, I'd appreciate a nod or a general, yeah, hey. Great. Okay, that's how we're going to do the project and how I've outlined them.
According to Mr. Fisk, there's a couple of possible errors.
Well, it would be nice, you know, I don't know where the errors came from when they saw them. They were all sent out, all these were sent out by emails 5-6 hours ago. So if there are typographical errors, I would ask that someone provide that to me so that they can be repaired. But substantively, the part 1 is simply a description of the project and where we live. I don't know what the any typographicals. I've looked through it, but you know, if there's a misspelling, we certainly will correct that.
Has everyone had a chance to review this within the last few hours?
I've looked at it.
Everyone confident enough to move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't have to. You'll have to deal with Matt. Let me get organized here for a minute. We've got too many folders. Okay. Well, we're going to consider number 1 as number 13, which is the consideration of a bond resolution authorizing water system improvements at an estimated maximum cost of $4,650,000. Okay, that's item 13. That's 1 for our purposes. 2 is number 14. You don't have to read it. 15 is 3, and 16 is 4. All set?
Yes.
Okay. I'm now going to read from part 2 relative to those questions. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? Number 1.
No.
No.
Number 2,
No.
number 3,
No.
and number 4.
No.
Number 2, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Number 1.
No.
Number 2.
No.
Number 3.
No.
Number 4. Number 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Number 1.
No.
Number 2.
No.
Number 3.
No.
Number 4.
No.
Number 4, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area or referenced otherwise as a CEA? Number 1.
No.
Number 2.
No.
Number 3.
No.
Number 4.
No.
Question 5, will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, and walkways? Number 1.
No.
Number 2.
No.
Number 3.
No.
Number 4. Number 6, question 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Number 1.
No.
Number 2.
No.
Number 3.
No.
Number 4.
No.
Number 7, will the proposed action impact existing A, public-private water supplies? Number 1.
No.
2. 3.
No.
4.
No.
Number B, or letter B rather, public or private wastewater treatment utilities?
No.
Number 1, I'm sorry, number 2?
No.
Number 3?
No.
Number 4? 8, question 8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality or important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Number 1?
No.
Number 2?
No.
Number 3?
No.
Number 4?
No.
Question 9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Number 1?
No.
Number 2?
No.
Number 3?
No.
Number 4?
No.
Question number 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Question, or number 1?
No.
2?
No.
3?
No.
4?
No.
Question 11, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Number 1?
No.
Number 2?
No.
Number 3?
No.
Number 4?
No.
Based upon your review, have you determined for each one of the 4 projects that, based upon the information and the analysis above, and any supporting documentation that you received, that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts? Number 1.
No.
2.
No.
3.
No.
4.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If it pleases council, agenda items 13, 14, 15, and 16 are all bond resolutions. And we can do a consent agenda. I'll ask for one vote on all 4. So 13, 14, 15, 16. 13 is about water system improvements. 14, the reconstruction of the swimming pool locker room. 15, reconstruction of Main Street. And then 16, the Wego Street drainage improvements. So can I entertain a motion to consider as a consent agenda items 13 through 16? Katie Soman, second. Gary Thomas, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then the same for 17, 18, 19, and 20. Entertain a motion to consider 17, 18, 19, and 20 as a consent agenda. Katie Silliman, second. Troy Beckwith, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hang on. Moved pretty quick here. My concern with all these bonds is that, how do we fare regarding, paying these off versus how's this gonna affect, future projects if, we don't have enough money to fund these?
Here's your man.
I can address that.
We're looking at over 10 million in bonds.
We're looking at a little over 10 million in bonds.
One of those is.
And why don't we cover each one of the projects so that you know where the funding is coming from? The water plant pumping facilities, which you've already approved the contract for and that work is underway. That is funded, that is a $4,650,000 project. To Tom's point, it is funded $1.380,000. And you have this, what I'm reading off of, is a grant from the Environmental Facility Corporation, and $920,000 is a no-interest hardship loan from the Facility Corporation. We are banding for 5 years, which means principal start in the second year, for $2,440,848. $2,440,848. We're bonding for 5 years to cover the gap between what you approved as a construction cost and what we have from ESC funding in place right now. The 5 years will give us the opportunity to apply to put this project on the EFC's environmental intended use plan, which we have. It is on the 2009, it will be on the 2020 intended use plan, which makes it grant eligible in 2021, the grant loan process. Or, depending upon the market conditions, bond for 30 years. So this is what we're doing on that. Now, to Tom's point, you approved the full cost. The borrowing will be much less when we write the bonds and go to market on the 16th of November. Right now, we anticipate going to market for $2,925,000. That includes $575,000 in short-term financing so we can cash flow the project. Cash flow, what I mean by that is the difference between when the invoice comes in from the contractor and when we apply for reimbursement. There is on this project, generally about a 4-week lag. So what we're doing is in putting cash into the project equal to 25% of what will be in transit on the EFC loans. Have I explained that at all?
What you're doing is just keeping the cash flow flowing so that we don't run out of money in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm keeping it so I don't have to borrow from the general fund.
Yeah.
For construction costs. Okay, that's your first project. Your second project on my list is the Wickwire swimming pool. The bond proposal was written for what I'm gonna call the all-in engineering estimate. I'm about 2 weeks ahead of John on this. The all-in is the maximum that the engineers have estimated that this locker room project will cost. John will be before you in about 2 weeks, and they've narrowed that cost down. That project is funded through a $407,586 grant from the Parks. Okay, $208,600 from program income, which is very liquid to us, very liquid. And the balance is going through a 5-year ban. I do not foresee, talking to John, that this project is gonna run at the $1.2 million. We will adjust the band according to what council approves this project in 2 weeks. We are funding in place the entire $407,586 from the Parks Association because we can only remit for reimbursement on a quarterly basis. And our experience with the Parks Department is they tend to be slow reimbursing. So in order not to impose on the general fund, I am suggesting that we go out on a short-term ban So 407,586. And then the difference between what the project, what you approve the project is and what I have already set aside in programming coming back. Once again, the bond proposal is for the full cost. The actual borrowings, when we put this together, will be less than that. The next project, and I would ask that the resolution be changed on this from Main Street to the downtown core. That syncs with the bond application. This is your DRI. And we are writing the bond proposal broad enough so that if the water line from Maine and Clinton down to Court is done this year, okay, we can cash flow it if it's done this year. If that portion of the water line or the infrastructure between the Main Street and Church Street is financed through two other sources. 60% of that is financed through the EFC, and the other 40% is financed through the EPA loan for 14 that we're currently in the process of closing for $14,900,000. So that is why with your permission, I would like to change the wording on item number 15 from Main Street to downtown core.
And on 19?
And on 19 too. Thank you. The last project that we're putting the financing in place for is the Owego Street flood mitigation project. That is funded in whole with a $300,000 grant from the EFC. They are generally a prompt payment, and that is about 50% of that project is going to be done in-house, which means we're already putting the money out. So the bond proposal was for $300,000. We anticipate going to market on a short-term ban up to $75,000. In short, everything that we borrow and everything that we have been borrowed from the last few years is grant reimbursed. We're not really committing proceeds from taxes or general revenues. Okay. All these bonds carry the city's full faith and credit. They're all called GO bonds, general obligation bonds, but we continue only to borrow what we have grant funding or grant loan funding to back up. We have not borrowed what I call without a source of payment for several years now.
Very good.
I appreciate Rick doing the seekers. Let me explain that a little bit. Our bond counsel, Matt Wells, is a very, very competent bond counsel. He's of the school where seekers are required for bonding, and that's what the seeker was, the environmental effect of me standing up here and producing paper. There is a difference of opinion that if a seeker is required. I have never felt the need to really debate that subject with bond counsel, but so I do appreciate your tolerance and your to go through that process.
Mac, I appreciate that we are a small city and we're moving ahead on such big, major projects that benefit everybody.
Now, I'm sure that Nick is coming to the end of this construction season, and we'll probably give a wrap up of where we are on Clinton Avenue Water. I'm just preparing that if we have a good construction season, still the weather isn't 80 degrees, 83 degrees today, that may allow us to allow Nick to move a little bit to the west, which was bid, which is already included in this bid, and perhaps how far we can get up to Main Street, but have the cash to do that.
Thank you. Further discussion. Clarification, agenda item number 20, the language should read consideration of a resolution authorizing public notices of a bond resolution authorizing the Owego Street drainage improvements with the estimated maximum cost of $300,000. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Agenda item number 21 is discussion regarding the city's non-renewal of the MLU, which is Memorandum of Understanding with the DEA, which is the Drug Enforcement Agency. So this is discussed quite extensively at the council meeting 2 weeks ago. Council, what would you like to discuss this evening?
Is this a discussion or a revote?
On the agenda as a discussion item.
See,
However, it could be a revote if you all would entertain that motion.
May I address the council?
It's up to council.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll just take a few minutes to hopefully touch on all the concerns that have come up and maybe answer most of them, if not all of them. And I'm open to any questions you may have after that. So I think we can all understand and agree that the opioid crisis has gripped our nation and our community over these past few years. I've mentioned many times in many venues, as well as my colleagues across the nation, we cannot arrest ourselves out of this situation, out of this opioid crisis. Police can't do it alone. There has to be a multi-pronged approach to tackle this problem. Bearing that in mind, I felt it was important to attack the source of illegal drugs coming into Cortland and to assist with the recovery of those addicted who wanted help. For those reasons, that's why I first elected to join the DEA task force, to complement the work in our local drug task force, which we are still a part of, always have been. And I partnered with the DA's office with his Angel Program initiative. We're the only department that has done that as well. The DEA task force is a tremendous asset in trying to keep the flow of drugs out of our community, and we're the only agency working with the district attorney with his Angel Program. Instead of just arresting individuals and racking up arrest numbers, stop or curtail the flow and assist those already addicted. We seek at the Cortland Police Department not to increase the number of drug arrests made by our officers, but find ways to decrease the need for as many arrests. In any event, we'll make arrests whenever and wherever appropriate. And it should be understood that the far majority of our arrests in drugs and everything else are made by our uniformed officers on patrol, working shifts, answering calls. They're the ones who make the biggest number of any arrests we have, especially drug arrests. Our narcotics detective is there for support of our uniformed officers and or to follow up on information developed by our uniformed officers with what could be a lengthy or detailed investigation. Prior to the retirement of Lieutenant Troyer in January this year, I had a detective assigned to the DEA and one assigned to the local drug task force. Since his retirement, I promoted Sergeant Strangebury to lieutenant and reassigned Sergeant Johnson to the task force. And he had been available, both of them have been available to work with the Cortland County Drug Task Force when needed and when asked. It's imperative that we keep this with the EA MOU intact until we're able to get back up to full staff at the police department. Right now, the majority of our detectives' work is being done locally. Concerning overtime expenditure, I know that's been a pretty hot topic. By far, the amount of overtime expended at the police department in most years, this year included, is due to lack of personnel and contractual obligations. DEA or Cortland County Drug Task Force overtime doesn't come close to that amount. One complicated event, such as the hostage situation we had at the hotel last year, can result in almost as much overtime than a DEA assigned detective would make in a year. Almost. One event. Take these things into consideration. I ask you to allow me to put police personnel where I feel they'll work best for our community. And I can answer any questions you have.
Chief, if you have an officer dedicated to the task force up in Syracuse, but you need him back home because we're short-handed, how do you handle that situation?
We bring him back here. The detective that's assigned to the DEA task force still handles local cases. He's still in the on-call rotation with the other detectives. And he is my officer. If I need him here, he comes here. This is an MOU. This is not a contract where I'm selling him to another agency for a year. It's an MOU for a year. It means I can get out of it with notice if it doesn't work for us anymore.
And when I spoke with our chief financial officer about the cost of this on our budget, he said he thought it was a wash, meaning that it equals out. And personally, I got enough phone calls and emails and even a letter. I feel strongly that our budget is for the people, and if enough, and God knows we want people to be involved in the budget process and talk about how they want their taxes spent. And in my opinion, this is people speaking up and saying how they want their taxes spent, and they see the value in this. And a lot of the objections that I've heard, Chief has addressed. So I would still vote for it. I didn't mean to be the poster council person for this. I didn't realize it was a big hot button issue. But I think since it turned out to be one, we should reconsider our vote.
I would agree that we should reconsider the vote. I feel like I've heard from a number of constituents who have concerns about this and having a little more information. I think it's important to make sure that we are thoroughly thinking it through with this decision.
I promise you, it's not my issue. It's not something I went out there as a call to arms, and I didn't contact the paper and put an article in the paper about it. I didn't want it to become contentious between us on council. So I'm just asking that you reconsider and that we vote again. Because I think there may be some people who've changed their minds and they should get an opportunity to express that.
Something that did come to light through all this that we didn't have the information before was the excessive use of a vehicle going back and forth regarding mileage usage. We're in a predicament now that we had an opportunity to buy two new police cars. We're down to one now. And something tells me this one car will probably be utilized, or any vehicle be utilized back and forth as well, like it has been. So there's gonna be some costs there that we're gonna have to absorb, just to keep in mind.
I can tell you, Tom, that the narcotics vehicle that the detective uses, the lifetime maintenance for that vehicle is no more than any other vehicle in our detective fleet. And we have those numbers if you need them.
So if we do this, we will actually be more involved with the DEA in the city of Syracuse or Onondaga County. Because the city of Syracuse does have an employee who's involved. However, he is pulled quite frequently when there's cases in the city. And you compare the number of city employees in our police department and the city of Syracuse Police Department, one for them, one for the city. Onondaga County has somebody who is a liaison and is not actively participating. and Onondaga County is much greater.
It's not accurate.
That's from a discussion with law enforcement outside of the city that I had directly. So if it's incorrect, but I talked to somebody in law enforcement, so.
Well, this is Lieutenant who was in the drug task force, maybe.
Onondaga County has a full-time representative. He works there every single day. He works there considerably more than I ever did, and then the current detective does. I split time about 50-50 up there in working here in the city of Cortland. As has the present detective up until very recently, when we brought him back here full-time. And they've allowed him an opportunity to work from here remotely over computer so that he can participate in what's going on here in the fact that we're short personnel. But that's not accurate. Syracuse PD person is a full-time asset to the DEA task force. They go back to their department and work cases just like ours does. So does Auburn, so does the Onondaga County Sheriff's Officer, so does the Oneida County Sheriff's Officer. This is how the task force works. This isn't necessarily a full-time, I just don't want you to get the wrong impression and think that we lose someone here and now we have someone that's not working here that should be working here. That person is still working here. And when they're not working here, they're working for us here. And I guess, I don't know how else to explain this. We've been over this so many times now, and I'll leave it to you.
What's the desire of council?
I would like to.
So it would be potentially consideration of resolution to allow the police department to continue the memorandum of understanding with the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency.
Yes.
And we need a motion to, one moment.
You would need a motion from the person who had said, who voted no in the last vote. That would have to be the person who makes the motion.
So we have a motion on the floor from Cat McCarthy.
And then it can be seconded by anybody.
I'll second.
Second, Katie Silman, discussion.
It's my understanding, if it's necessary to change the decision that was adopted at a previous meeting, a member would have to make a motion to rescind first. That's according to the.
We just did. Maybe that mere
No,
motion.
we just, you're
Kate
right,
did,
I think you're right. Because Kat just motioned to put a new one on, so we should rescind the old one before we vote again. Is that how it goes, right?
I'll make a motion.
Well, let me ask, Tom, are you talking about Robert's Rules of Order?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, because, Ray, we follow Robert's Rules of Order, but we are not beholden to Robert's Rules, am I correct?
That's correct.
We follow the charter, lead.
What I told you initially was correct.
So from a legal standpoint,
From a legal
Robert's
standpoint-
Rules of Order, if we are following strictly, then you are correct. However, the legal interpretation is that what we have done does make it legal going forward. But if we want to, we can go back and look to rescind the vote, just to be,
It's not necessary.
Okay.
but we do have a motion on the floor and it does have support. Discussion.
And just to let council know, I did research this, anticipating this may come up, so.
Thank you. Should we do a roll call vote?
We can. So, aye is in favor, nay is against. First ward,
Aye.
second,
Aye.
third,
Nay.
fourth,
Nay.
fifth,
Nay.
sixth, excuse me, seventh,
Nay.
eighth.
Aye.
Vote fails, 3-4. I'm gonna ask council if we can adjourn into executive session to talk about entering into a contract and negotiations of a contract with the potential for action afterwards. Motion to consider. John Bennett, second. Bill Cortland. All those in favor of going into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? anticipate action afterwards.